First of all, this is my last official video until August. It's actually made before the last martial artist video that I'm going to release after this one. And I'd like to thank females, being sarcastic of course, for dating me and making sure I took care of myself, seeing how I don't have a regular job to go to because I'm being blacklisted and shunned and persecuted. Going on dates would have helped me maintain my composure, help civilize me, if you will, and keep me cool-headed, level-headed as my intimacy needs on all levels were fulfilled. But instead you betrayed me and you helped them covertly drug me, and you did everything you could to try to play me out because you're selfish, hypergamous and materialistic and shallow and all these evil traits. So before I read this, let me explain why I'm reading this again. The last video I made, that I put on private, that is, I put screenshots from this book on the screen. I'm also going to be reading from this book, a screenshot I left out, or rather a picture from the pages. And in that video, I was absolutely right strategically to say everything I did. But my conscience, which I believe is connected to God, made it clear to me that I was being too harsh to these people. Even though the truth needed to come out, it didn't need to come out in a way that is so harsh. And I'll leave it at that. The bottom of page 11. Central to all contexts is the concept of honor for the practitioner, and often for the community through the honored practitioner. Mastering either art could bring a skilled practitioner respect for his graceful execution, the admiration of potential wives, and economic advancement. Each art provided a path of spiritual development that could take an exceptional adept to one of the highest forms of honor in Africa, the status of a transcendent hero. Someone who was initiated into full mastery of Ngolo could become a special kind of ancestor, one who could physically manifest in the bodies of his descendants. Similarly, the Biafran art of Mba and its cognates could serve as a tool to achieve the highest of honors. A master of the art, Mba, who remained true to the accompanying moral code, could become a transcendent hero, the most honored of ancestors, who could be called upon for guidance in important matters and could reincarnate among the living while retaining a position among the dead ancestors. In this sense, both Ngolo and Mba can be understood as martial arts and more specifically as martial ways in the strict sense. The importance of following these African martial arts into the Americas becomes clear when one considers that while it was economic in its objective, the slave system was ultimately held together by physical and symbolic, real or threatened, violence. Therefore, it should not be surprising that at times African combat traditions were used in the Americas as forms of self-defense against this violence. Many of the bondsmen who rose up in the Haitian Revolution may have relied on previous military experience and their stick and machete fighting arts. While such skills were at times used as forms of direct resistance, martial arts were more often used as means to fight for honor within the confines of bondage. So when you look at unconventional warfare, guerrilla warfare, absolutely these martial arts ways and traditions can be applied on the battlefield. So not only do they have applications in traditional martial arts combat, hand-to-hand combat, ancient combat, but also even in guerrilla combat. And if one does their due diligence and reads more than just this book, they're forced to the conclusion that African martial arts were part of the reason why the blacks in Haiti won the Haitian Revolution against their oppressors. Rewind this part, play the first 5 minutes again. I highly recommend it. Play it 4 or 5 times until you truly understand what I am saying and the deeper implications and how serious this is for them to deny me my rightful place in society. It is a great insult to the first martial art masters who were black African. It is a great insult to all the bondsmen or slaves who fought for honor, and many were killed fighting for freedom. The first true freedom fighters in America were Native Americans and African bondsmen. With that being said, let us go to psychiatry, shall we? Because these people will hide behind these social norms. I am about to establish, beyond any doubt, that even if I suffered a mental illness, which I promise to God I do not, it does not make any sense for me to turn to the oppressors, who have been testifying about their oppression related to these projects, COINTELPRO, MKUltra, the Tuskegee experiments, and on and on. Some of them were testifying as late as the 90s, and they were still practicing in their respective fields related to these. This is page 33, ironically. No, I'm not a Mason. This just happened to land on page 33 for whatever reason. This is written by a psychiatrist, Dr. Colin Ross, the CIA doctors. The mind control experiments were conducted by a network of doctors that included the leaders of psychiatry and the major medical schools. The mind control doctors included presidents of the American Psychiatric Association and psychiatrists who received full-page obituaries in the American Journal of Psychiatry. In this section of the CIA doctors, extensive documentation of the interconnections between the mind-controlled doctors and institutions is presented. The evidence refutes any claim that the mind control experiments involved only a few isolated renegades or doctors practicing in an era with different ethical standards. So they still had the same ethical standards, the same social norms, the same Hippocratic oath and what have you. I don't know how well you can see this. During the page of it. During the era of these experimentations, and many of these doctors are still around today, either practicing or advising psychiatrists to this day, not to mention writing books and what have you. And keep in mind, this book was originally published in 2000 as Bluebird, Deliberate Creation of Multiple Personality by Psychiatrists. Are you starting to understand how serious this is? To say that the mind control experiments, the radiation experiments where they fed, well, matter of fact, let me read that to you because I want to make sure you people understand. I put this in another video, but let me make sure you understand the kind of filth that I'm talking about. These so-called Ivy League experts that you put so much faith in, well, what do? Other MKUltra institutions that injected non-therapeutic radioactive materials into children included Johns Hopkins, the University of Minnesota, and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. MIT gave radioactive substances to children at the Fernald School by putting it in their food. And it goes on to say the consent form stated that the purpose of the experiments. Well, let's go on. The advisory committee notes that no risks of radioactivity were mentioned in the consent form signed by the parents. The consent form stated that the purpose of the experiments was helping to improve the nutrition of our children. You start to understand how sick these people are. It makes you wonder what's really in your vitamin pills that you give your children. And maybe these natural medicine doctors have a point when they say you can't trust mainstream medicine. I personally don't know. But what I do know is that psychiatry is a deadly fraud, and this is more than just greed. There is an insidious agenda that relates to Masonic philosophies and the military-industrial complex, and it directly relates to fighting for honor. It is impossible to fight for honor as a martial artist and to be silent about psychiatry. It is one of the most oppressive and reprehensible pseudosciences that man has ever come up with. It kills 500,000 people every year. They drug 1 in 3 foster children. San Jose Mercury News, mainstream news reported this. They gave should we be surprised about it? They gave radioactive drugs to children and said it's for their nutrition. Just like they're giving drugs to 1 in 3 foster children and saying it's, to help them function in society for their quote unquote health, their mental health. Should any of us be surprised that they are covertly drugging me when they spend billions, tens of billions of dollars on marketing every year? The big pharmaceutical companies do. In 1 year alone, Johnson & Johnson spent around $17 billion just on marketing. They have years of research that they've published in the American psychiatric journals and so on and so forth, and publications and articles. Years, decades of research into this stuff. They are experts at slipping radioactive materials, chemicals, biological warfare-related substances into people's drinks and foods. They work with the universities and the big corporations and the Scottish Rite on record to do so. Should any of, and that's all in this book. Over 80 institutions, corporations, universities, secret societies, at least one, the Scottish Rite. Should any of us be surprised? This guy went over 15,000 documents of MKUltra pages of MKUltra documents in order to do this. It says right there at the beginning of the book, somewhere here. Well, I don't have time to find it, but it says he went over 15,000, Oh, here we go. It's at the end. In the CIA doctors human rights violations by American psychiatrists, Dr. Ross provides proof based on 15,000 pages of documents obtained from the CIA through the Freedom of Information Act that there have been pervasive, systematic violations of human rights by American psychiatrists over the last 65 years. And some of the things he covers are more recent than MKUltra. You people need to wake up. They are doing this to me. And they are denying me my rightful place in society. And as a result, I'm tempted to make all of your races look bad for being complicit. And the traitors, the sellouts, the overseers in my own race as well. It pains me to realize that you people only care about your image and social acceptance to the point where if I want to do something about this, I have to call into question your image and your manhood, and challenge your social acceptance. Because these are the things you care about. You don't care about the 100 million preventable deaths to the point where you're going to do something about it. But the moment I make you look bad, which is the reason they're doing this to me in the first place, because I'm uncontrolled opposition that makes all the financiers and all the major institutions, political movements and secret societies and other martial artists who couldn't beat me and so on and so forth look bad. The moment I make you look bad, now magically you want to do something about it. And it forces you to one of two options. One, martyr me, because you're pretty much doing everything else you can to silence me already and it's not working. So either you martyr me and I win, or you help me and I win. So give me one good reason why when August comes around I shouldn't reveal, a month and a half worth of ideas about how to make you look bad and go out of my way to make sure it gets thousands of views, the videos that I release. Give me one reason. This is all you care about. Am I truly wrong to do it? The only reason I haven't done it already is because God appealed to me. But as I'm sitting there holding back my anger and it's simmering inside of me, and I know there's one thing that's going to work with you people who only care about your image and your images. Why shouldn't I come to the conclusion that now it's time to go there? Now it's time to talk about the history of warfare and make people look bad. Why shouldn't I go there? Why? Look what you have done to me, your daughters, your sisters, all attractive women my age. Why shouldn't I?